On May 10th of 1941, Rudolf Hess would make a daring flight into Scotland with hopes to negotiate a peace treaty with the British government by discussing it with the Duke of Hamilton. Hess allegedly thought of this by himself, and flew to Scotland without order or notifying anyone before this plan. His flight had taken off after the occupation of Poland, but before the invasion of the Soviet Union in World War II. His motive was to bring peace between England and Germany. Rudolf Hess was ranked Deputy Führer, being the second command until 1939. When August rolled around, Hitler distributed a change of ranks and successors right before the invasion of Poland. The new successor, as second command, was given to Hermann Göring, who was also in charge of the Luftwaffe and now the other field marshals as well, with his new rank Reichsmarschall. So if Hitler and Göring were to fall, Rudolf Hess would then take control. It's reported that nobody knew at the time that Rudolf Hess was planning a rogue flight, leaving on his own terms to deliver a peace treaty. This technically undermined his superior's plans, as he flew off with his own intentions without notifying anyone. For those who don't know, Hess and Hitler have a relationship that go back to 1920, during the failed beer hall putsch and their time together in Landsberg prison, where Hess would help Hitler write his infamous book, Mein Kampf. Hess knew that Hitler didn't want a war with England, but there is no evidence that the two had any meetings together to stop the war. Rudolf Hess brought supplies to take on his long journey. He brought money and toiletries, a torch, a camera, maps and charts, and a collection of 28 different medicines, as well as dextrose tablets to help fight off fatigue, and an assortment of homeopathic remedies. Hess's plane of choice was a Messerschmitt Bf-110. Hess flew into the night, leaving behind a letter to be delivered to Hitler stating his intentions. It's May 10th, 1941. Hess's current position has gone from Germany to Scotland, and now it's time for takeoff. Looking back, he's taken it upon himself to take private lessons in aviation, and he has had his plane personally modified to install large long-range fuel tanks for his trip. Nobody in his country knows what his plan is at the time. It's worth mentioning that Hess's secretary, Martin Bormann, had started completing tasks shortly before this, and Hitler favored having Martin Bormann around, essentially replacing Rudolf Hess, as Rudolf Hess wasn't being invited to future meetings, and Martin Bormann taking his place. Hitler would make Martin Bormann his new secretary. Some say this was Hess's attempt at getting Hitler's favoritism back by doing a heroic mission for a solo flight to England and to get his attention. 5 hours into his flight, and Hess is running low on fuel. It didn't help that he had made a few zigzags going back and forth around sunset early on in his flight. Surprisingly, he managed to avoid being shot down, but this did not stop him from being detected when he made it closer. During his last hour of flight, it was dark out and 2 Spitfires on patrol spotted him and began chase. But they failed to intercept him. A 3rd Spitfire was summoned, but also failed to find him as well. Hess was getting closer to his destination, the Dungavel House, where he expected to meet the Duke of Hamilton. He started flying at a lower altitude of 50 feet above the ground, so low that a volunteer on post recognized Hess's Messerschmitt model. However, Hess was almost out of fuel, and he was still 12 miles out from his destination, so he elevated 6,000 feet into the air so he could parachute out. Hess lands at a farm south of Glasgow. He was discovered still struggling to get out of his parachute by a local farmer. Hess talked with the farmer and gave him the fake name Alfred Horn and told him that he had an important message for the Duke of Hamilton. The farmer invites him back to his cottage, and while preparing him tea, he calls the local guard unit, who had arrived to take Hess to the police station. They eventually discovered that it was Rudolf Hess, and that they had him behind bars. They would still allow the Duke of Hamilton to visit at his request, as Hess had extensive notes for peace prepared. Back home, Hitler reads the letter that Hess had left for him. On the account of Albert Speer, Hitler let out an inarticulate scream and was in tears. He then feared his allies would think he was negotiating with the enemy behind their backs. What if Japan thought he was trying to make peace with Britain? Hitler declared his longtime friend mad and had Joseph Goebbels relay the news to the German people that Rudolf Hess had become a traitor. Rudolf Hess's wife would later hear of his arrival safely to Britain by radio. The Duke of Hamilton had several speeches with Hess through a translator. Hess made his pleas for peace, and stated Hitler was going to conquer Europe but respected England and wanted her to have no war with Germany. After these conversations, Hess was left behind bars and nothing came from it. Churchill said treat him well, but obviously there was no plans for a top Nazi official to be released from custody. They let Hess read and listen to Germany's speeches about him, stripping him of all his ranks and declaring him a traitor and a madman. Hess became increasingly depressed and started showing signs of mental illness. One day, Hess would see an opportunity to rush through guards and throw himself over a tall flight of stairs, attempting suicide on a stone floor. He failed and broke his leg. Hess would remain locked up. He would complain that his food was poisoned by guards, often requested to switch food with him, or that the Jews were mind-controlling Britain. After the war ended, the Nuremberg trials began, and started with the top Nazis and the war criminals and crimes against humanity cases. Hess's mental state was somewhat ill, but he increased it for show and later admitted it was staged. A psychologist deemed some of his mental health issues were in fact real, and some of it was indeed for show, and he was fit enough to stand trial. Most others received the death penalty, and Rudolf Hess was given a life sentence to be served at Spandau prison. The 7 war criminals would be delivered to this prison. Hess was prisoner number 7. While others were doing their time and leaving, Hess would be the last and only inmate inside of a 600-cell prison. The prison would rotate guards on a monthly basis, consisting of 60 guards, several of them occupying heavy machine guns from towers. Rudolf Hess served 47 years at Spandau until his death at the age of 93 in 1987. He had began serving his time alone in 1966. He was found hung by an electrical cord in the prison's garden. Shortly after the death of Rudolf Hess, the prison would be destroyed to avoid it becoming a shrine for neo-Nazis. Some speculate Hess was murdered rather than suicide, arguing he was too frail to hang himself in the garden, alluding to political reasons to get the Soviet Union's guard out of their territory. Others say it's obvious his suicide could be seen coming, pointing to his history of suicide attempts and long years of depression. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Hey everyone, real quick I'd like to address something. I want to take this time to really thank my current subscribers for staying with me during the removal of my last upload from YouTube and the gap of time between this video from my last one because of that. So I really do thank you guys. It was removed by YouTube for violating its terms, though it didn't specify where in my content the problem was. For those who didn't get to see it before it was removed and are curious, it was not a video promoting any anti-Semitism or any narrative that Nazis are good. It was a topic on civilian life in Germany during World War II. I've heard from others that videos being removed isn't too uncommon in this subject area, as disheartening as that is. I didn't want to do this one because of that. However, I enjoy history, and I still did this one anyway, and I'm also hoping this video isn't stripped as well. I just don't understand why it would. I want to clarify that I'm a history buff, and I enjoy talking about the past. I make videos to deliver these stories and information without trying to give you a narrative on how you should feel about it. As it goes, I believe history is to be learned from, so we are not condemned to repeat it. So many stories, books, and movies are influenced by history. I believe history has the best stories. I'll be more careful in the future of what names I put in the tags of my videos. I think it was using Adolf's full name in my video on the last one that got it pulled down. Had I knew that that was the issue, I never would have done it. I hope I can continue to upload here. I didn't get a strike, but it's still worrisome as new as I am. I want to avoid any trouble and don't want to worry about what I can and can't upload here. I find therapy in making these videos and entertaining people. Thank you guys as always for listening. Hopefully all goes well with this one, and I'll be seeing you soon with the next upload. Thanks again everyone, and until next time, take care.